me. O holy and gracious God, may the words of my mouth and the meditation on all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight. For you, O God, you are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So we continue this Advent season. I got it now. Looking at these gifts that God gives us. Last week, of course, we talked about hope, and this week our focus is on peace. And as we listen to the scriptures, we again return to the 11th chapter of Isaiah and picked up where we had left off last week. So just to remind you, last week the prophet lifted up for the people this vision of hope, that a king would come, as God had promised. A king from the line of David would be on the throne, that this king would be filled with the Spirit of the Lord, that he would have a spirit of wisdom and understanding, of counsel and might, a spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. And Isaiah painted this image of a righteous and just king who would provide for the kingdom. And he did this at a time when the people were under significant threat. There was violence and war and threat of exile all around them. This was not a peaceful or peaceable time. And as Isaiah continues with his vision of hope, he turns to a vision of peace in an almost fantastical way. He talks about the animals and how even creation will fall under this landscape of peace, that a wolf will live with a lamb. Go ahead and picture that. That a leopard shall lie down with a kid, that a calf and a lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them, that the cow and the bear will graze. Right. A bear's going to turn down some good cow. Right? Their young shall lie down together, and a lion shall eat straw like an ox. Children will be able to play with snakes or over a snake's home. A baby with a serpent. I hope you hear in this a little echo of the creation story. You'll remember the serpent, not the woman. The serpent caused the challenges for us, right? The fall in the Garden of Eden. And so Isaiah is lifting up this image of restoration, this image of the world being righted as it had been when God first created it. It is, however, a fantastical image where we see this, well, mostly all of creation. You'll notice in that whole listing of the different animals and how they would unnaturally live in peace with one another, that birds are not mentioned, the animals of the sea are not mentioned, and I don't think the bugs are in on this either. I don't see it in there. And so, but what he does for us is he paints this incredible vision of peace. Have you seen the painting of the Peaceable Kingdom? You all know what I'm talking about, right? It's just an incredible picture of all of creation living in peace. I got to thinking about peace, and I got to tell you where my mind went, right? Anybody Miss America? Right? The Miss America, I'm going to get this right. It's a scholarship competition. It is not a beauty pageant. It is a scholarship competition. And you'll recall that to participate in this, you also have to go through an interview, and it's your opportunity to lift up social issues that you would advocate. And the winning answer is world peace. That's where I went. You know, if you're gonna say the right thing within that scholarship competition, it needs to be world peace, that's what you're working for. And you'll remember that saying. I'm sure you've all heard the saying, if you want peace, you must work for justice. And I think Isaiah picks up on this idea that peace is only possible in a just world. at a time when there is, where people do receive mercy, where no one is left out or left behind, where no one is marginalized or ostracized or oppressed. But as I mentioned to you last week, as we go through this passage in Isaiah, we hear nothing of Isaiah telling us what we must do. There is no exhortation in this. Okay, if you want this king, if you want this kind of creation that lives in peace, here's what you need to do. Isaiah does not do that. Isaiah recognizes that all of this is God's work, that this is God's work for us, that peace, like hope, is available to us. It's not something that we keep thinking, okay, someday God is going to give me peace. And we sit around and wait for it like we wait for that Amazon Prime delivery to show up on our front door. You see, peace is within us. Jesus helped us to understand this. In the Gospel of John, the 14th chapter, as Jesus is beginning what is often referred to as the farewell discourse, he is still alive and he is very much aware that he will die, that he will be buried, and that he will be resurrected, that he will rise again. He is aware of this, but he also understands that the disciples are not going to have a clue what to do when that happens. And so he begins in this 14th chapter trying to help prepare them. And he tells them, do not let your hearts be troubled. I mean, isn't a troubled heart the antonym of peace? Right? Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. Yes, I am going to go away. But then he assures them, I will not leave you orphaned. The Father will send the Holy Spirit to be with you always. And then he goes on to say, peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. And he reminds them again, do not let your hearts be troubled and do not let them be afraid. In other words, peace is not something that we wait to be delivered to us. Peace happens within us. In fact, peace is one of those spiritual practices that we never talk about. It is actually a discipline that we are invited to be a part of, only we just don't, usually. Now, we try to do it as we start worship. I know it's allergy season, and some of you were like, yeah, right, I'm going to take a deep breath through my nose. I understand that. But this whole process of just breathing is a practice of peace. It is a practice of resettling, realigning your system so that it is more settled down. There is actually a physiological response when we breathe deeply and slowly. Now, it would help if we did it more than twice, but we got to do other things besides breathe, right? And I trust that you will continue to breathe. It is an important thing for us to do. And so we look at peace as something we seek within. Now, many of us would like to say that peace happens when the world finally gets straightened out, right? I will be at peace once the news is all good. I will be at peace once I can turn on the television and everything is Hallmark, right? And so we'll use that as an excuse. I'm just going to wait. You know, peace is going to show up one of these days. And we miss it. Because peace is what we're called to experience within ourselves. It is our invitation to not be troubled, to trust that God is, as God promised, always with us, that God's Spirit continues to surround us, that we don't go through all of this stuff alone. We're not in the middle of all of this troubled times by ourselves. We are anchored to God, and God's peace is available. It's just up to us to open ourselves to receive that peace. So as I said, it's really like a discipline. Perhaps it's the breathing. Perhaps it's simply choosing to be present in the moment. Isaiah says a child will lead them. If you're not sure what it means to be present in the moment, watch children. Children are very good at being present in the moment. They are always actually quite present in the moment. But for you and I, especially in this season when there is so much to do, so much that we've decided we need to do, but to be present, to truly be with the people that God has invited into your path, or to be with God's good creation. For some, it's breathing. For some, it's meditation. Perhaps it's that time spent in devotional. Perhaps it's just one phrase. I had shared with you a while back, be still and know that I am God. That's my go-to. That's my, okay. God is with me. I don't need to get worked up about all of this. I do not need to let my heart be troubled. God has promised, and God is always with me. Another thing we can do is close our eyes and picture that place. Where's that place for you? Isaiah had this place where the animals unnaturally lived together. And there was no violence, and there was peace. So where is the place that you picture in your mind? For some of you, it may be mountains. For me, it's always the beach. Maybe it's just at the lake. Maybe there's water, maybe there's not. But where is that image for you? And oftentimes, if we can catch ourselves when we're getting really wound up and stressed out and harried about all that is going on around us and that we still have to do, sometimes it's just a matter of closing our eyes and breathing and placing ourselves in that place of peace where our mind can settle, where our heart can calm down, where our soul can be filled with God's peace. There's a story called Painting Peace that I want to share with you. I'm sure it's a fable. There once was a king who offered a prize to the artist who would paint the best picture of peace. What would you paint? Many artists tried. The king looked at all the pictures, but there were only two that he really liked, and he had to choose between them. One picture was of a calm lake. The lake was a perfect mirror for peaceful, towering mountains all around it. Can you picture it? Overhead was a blue sky with fluffy white clouds. All who saw this picture thought it was a perfect picture of peace. Can you place yourself in that picture? The other picture had mountains too, but these were rugged and bare. And above was an angry sky from which rain fell and in which lightning played. Down the side of the mountain tumbled a foaming waterfall. This did not look peaceful at all. But when the king looked, he saw behind the waterfall a tiny bush growing in a crack in the rock. And in the bush, a mother bird had built her nest. There, in the midst of the rush of angry water, sat the mother bird on her nest in perfect peace. So which picture do you think won the prize? The king chose the second one. Because, he explained, peace does not mean to be in a place where there is no noise, no trouble, or no hard work. Peace means to be in the midst of all of those things and still be calm in your heart. That is the real meaning of peace. I encourage you in these last few weeks before Christmas, and I pray as you move into a new year that you continue it. But I encourage you to open yourself to the peace that God has for you. It will not be delivered. It is something you must focus on. It is something you must choose to open yourself to. It is a discipline. It is a practice of peace. And so I invite you to close your eyes. And let's take a deep breath through our nose and hold on to it. And very slowly release that breath. And as we do it again, I invite you to breathe in all of God's peace. And as you exhale, let all of the stress and the tension and the worry leave your body. Will you join with me in our prayer for peace? God of many names, lover of all peoples, we pray for peace in our hearts, in our homes, in our nations, in our world, the peace of your will, the peace only you can give. Amen.